name is Billy and you're listening to Humans of Authenticity. Our guest today is Marcia Howard, Vice President Regulatory and Scientific Affairs at Consumer Healthcare Products Association. She's a DELP alumni class of 2016-18, and we have so many good conversations together, so I'm excited to share one of them with you today. Welcome to Humans of Authenticity, Marcia.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. What should I share about my personal life? I grew up in a small town in West Virginia. It was, we actually have a 30 for 30 special from ESPN that talks about our town being a thought more so than a town, because it's an unincorporated area outside of Charleston, West Virginia, which is the capital city. I often think about how growing up in West Virginia shaped me into the person that I am today, even though West Virginia has never been high on anyone's list for the things that the country might track as far as educational outcomes, health outcomes, job opportunities. I think about how those values that were instilled in me as I was growing up in West Virginia helped me to achieve the goals that I have thus far. It grounded me and makes me a better staff member at my organization, also a better human being to those that I come into contact with.
What is it about West Virginia that has so much impact on how you grow up?
For me, what stands out, having grown up here, been educated in the West Virginia public school system, and then I chose to go to college out of state. And then you start to hear the perspective of other U.S. citizens and people who grew up in different states and how they think about West Virginia's backwoods, hillbillies, not the best educational system, coal miners, different things. And so we're never really thought of in a good sense. The general sense is that we're hillbillies with the West Virginia twang and maybe just the coal miner's daughter and things like that. But I realized I had a really solid educational background. When I went to undergraduate school, I realized that my chemistry teacher had prepared me so well that I actually knew most of what was happening in my first year of college chemistry. So here I am thinking that, you may be a subpar education compared to the inner city or a private school or places like New York or California or Illinois, where they always have strong public school systems. And yet I was fully prepared from a person that was teaching in the hills of West Virginia. I think about the resilience of people in West Virginia. There are people who drive 100 miles just to get a technical school education. There are people who don't have coats in the wintertime, but they stand and wait for the bus and take the bus 20 or 30 miles to go to work or to get an advanced degree or their high school diploma. Some of them don't even have indoor plumbing, or they may not have the finer things of life that we who have success in our careers and financial success and live in areas that have all the things that we take for granted and the amenities that we take for granted. And yet these are people who, the first time something happens, they're always the one there to offer a helping hand, or they make sure that their neighbor is taken care of, or they just do what they need to survive, and they do it with a willing heart and a smile. And sometimes you would never know the hardship that they're going through. And so I think that's what makes me proud to be from a small town in West Virginia.
Thank you for that. I'm hearing a lot of resilience through hardship and a lot of gratefulness for the support of the community around you and the population.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I've been out of high school for many, many moons now, but some of the people that were instrumental in my life are still around. We still stay in close contact, and I oftentimes thank them for the foundation that they gave me, because they truly made a difference. And they probably didn't even realize it at the time, how much they shaped my life. I remember different times when they prayed for me, or when they would call me and make sure that everything that's going on in my life is fine. and just made sure that I had the support and celebrated my successes and were there when I had challenges going on in my life. So to this day, they still are an instrumental part of my life. And I try to do things to thank them every day and just remind them that their kindness and concern and prayers and support weren't taken lightly. And hopefully I'm passing that along and paying it forward.
That's so awesome. Is there any particular individual that you like to give a shout out on this channel?
Oh, I don't know if I could just name one. I have so many, but maybe one that I guess was so instrumental because I still think about things that she told me when I was going through my arduous graduate school experience. I went back to graduate school as a non-traditional student. I had been working in the workforce for about 7 years or so before I decided to go back and get my doctorate degree. And I had finally gotten to the point where my major advisor told me I was ready to finish and graduate. I had a postdoc lined up, and my graduate committee said, "You're not ready." So I had to sunset my postdoc offer that I had at a prestigious university in New York City, do an extra year of research. And I just remember there was one day I just didn't think I was going to make it through. I'd already been 5 years into graduate school. Here I was going into my 6th year to finish my doctorate, and I didn't do the master's degree. And I remember one day just having a meltdown. I'm out in Oklahoma, pretty much 1,000 miles away from my family and friends. And I called this one woman, Miss Margaret Booker, and she is one of the kindest, sweetest, most compassionate women that I have known and continue to know. And we grew up, she helped raise me in our church and in our hometown. And I was, bawling like a child, and told her I didn't see the end in sight. And her words to me were so kind. She said, "When God gets ready to move, he is going to move quickly. You just have to hold on until that moment." I didn't see it at that time because things just didn't seem to be coming to fruition I had planned. And I remember the year that I did the extra year of research, I got to the point of them telling me in January that I had finished the research now, but by the way, you have to defend your dissertation in March. Anybody who's gone through the dissertation process knows it usually takes you about 6 months or so to start your dissertation and finish it and defend it. I had 2 months to do all of that. I didn't even have a title to my dissertation when they told me I was done. I had to have my first draft of my dissertation done in 2 weeks, a month to my major advisors, and then the next month to defend it. And I went back to what Ms. Booker told me about God moving quickly when it's time to move. And that has stuck with me today. When things seem to be moving slowly, I always say, okay, it seems like it's moving slow now, but when God is ready to move in my life, things are going to happen very quickly. So I would give a big shout out to Miss Margaret Booker, who still lives in Rand, West Virginia, along with my parents and myself when I'm here part-time.
That is so sweet. It just reminds me of how we come across each other and we have these conversations and we never know how much our conversation impact each other and
Absolutely.
impact our next step and our way moving forward. Could you share with us 3 things you love about yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. 3 things I love about myself. I try at least to be authentic. At least I think I'm authentic. So when you meet me, you really meet me. The second thing is I don't shy away from being from West Virginia and being called country. Some people try to distance themselves when they didn't grow up in the big city, but I own that we have good hearts and kind spirits. And then the third thing would be being generous. So I try to be generous with other people, whether I know them or not.
Thank you for sharing the 3 things. When you share the first one, you say you try to be authentic. What were your emotion when you say that?
So, everyone has how they believe they come across to other people, but it may not be how other people perceive you as being authentic. So for me, I feel like I'm being my authentic self, that I don't hide behind a facade, because I firmly believe that if people are around you for any length of time, the real you will come out. And I don't think it benefits you to begin a relationship or having a foundation of trust and respect to not be.
Okay. Can I just share with you an observation? When you
Okay.
said that you try to be authentic, I'm sensing a bit of hesitance in the way that you share that sentence. So I just want to unpack if there is any underlying stories or emotions here before we move on to the next.
I think the hesitation you might sense is my perception of myself versus being curious as to how others would view me if they would say that I bring my authentic self to the table, especially when you're first establishing that relationship. We're more vulnerable with people once we get to know them. And so there are clearly boundaries that you set when you're first beginning a relationship that you may have a different set of boundaries when you get to know and to trust someone more fully. But I also try not to pretend to be something that I'm not when I meet someone, because you never really know how long that relationship is going to last. And so you don't want to start it off under false pretenses. And not that you're being pretentious or not being true to who you are when you meet someone, if you don't reveal every aspect of your life, but certainly you don't want to pretend to be something that you're not really, just to try to impress someone or to make someone like you, or if you think that's going to garner favor with that person, as opposed to standing in your true self.
Gotcha. I'm hearing two different elements in this dynamic when we meet someone.
Mhm,
We have ourselves and the way that we show up. So
mhm.
that's the first element. And then we have the perceptions of the person that we meet at the second element. So in the first encounter, the first conversations you have with someone, which one will you give more weight in the way that you show up and in the way that you converse to this person?
I'm going to be me regardless, and appreciate that everyone may not like the real me, but if they do, they'll just get more of the real me the longer the relationship goes. And it won't feel like that I've been disingenuous when you met me and that somehow you met a representative instead of meeting the real me.
Thank you so much for dig deep with me on that. This is a good segue for us to move to the keyword conversation. What
Mhm.
word are you bringing to our discussion today?
My word is serendipity.
I've read a lot about this word in literature and in novels, but I don't think I've used it in day-to-day scenario. Can you explain to me what it is and why it is important to unpack this word?
Yeah. So for me, as we talked about this being my chosen word for our conversation today, I wanted to go back and see how would other people define it. I found this website that defined it as finding pleasing things that you had not been looking for. And as I thought back to my life, there have been so many times when serendipity came into play. And you had asked me about one person that I wanted to shout out, and I chose Miss Booker, but there's a second person that I would shout out, and that would be Miss Lynn Gatlib. She was my high school guidance counselor. My original goal has always been to be a physician, but I was going to get my undergraduate degree in engineering. I was going to Georgia Tech. And I thought, oh, if you're going to go to medical school, you might want to understand the body and the drugs that you might be prescribing. And so I chose to go to pharmacy school. I came back the summer before my senior year, told Ms. Gatlib, you had to help me find a pharmacy school, but I don't want to go anywhere cold. And she gave me a list of schools. And this was back in the time when you had to go to the public library, write to the school to get the application to even apply to the school. I got to the University of Georgia, which was one of the schools on her list, and I just felt like that's the place for me to go. Had never seen the school other than maybe watching Georgia football games. And that turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. I'd never even seen the campus until I went to freshman orientation. But that moment, I had no idea that I was making such a momentous decision that would turn out to bring such pleasure and joy, long-standing friendships and relationships to my life. So that was the first instance. And there have been so many instances in my life that things happened and the result turned out to be so much more than I would have ever anticipated. And ironically, I made it to med school, dropped out of med school at orientation. Part of the reason I ended up being a non-traditional graduate student is because I didn't listen to my undergraduate professor who suggested that I would go to graduate school and not go to medical school. When I changed my mind about being a physician, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and it took a while for me to figure that out. But while I was working in a totally non-scientific field, I met another person who was very instrumental in getting my PhD, and that's Dr. Paul Ferguson. I met him not as a student, but while I was working at this other organization. He encouraged me to apply to graduate school and provided support for me to go to graduate school as a full-time non-traditional student. And because of him and the path that he set me out on, I now have my doctorate in pharmaceutical sciences. At an event that I was attending, and they had invited him as the keynote speaker, I went up to him afterwards and we started a conversation, and that is what started me back into the field of science and research. The passion for science and research was still there, and he reignited that joy and exploration and offered me a mechanism and a pathway to get back into science because I had totally moved out of the research realm at that point.
Okay, cool. So go back to your chosen keywords, serendipity.
Mhm,
The definition you mentioned earlier is
mhm,
a place or things that you have not been looking for,
mhm.
but you encounter or you
Yes,
come across or you were given.
yes.
So what was the outcome of that? Does that give you a happy ending after that?
Yes, because of Dean Ferguson and his interest in me and his role in encouraging me to apply to graduate school. I was accepted into the graduate school program as a full-time student. And part of the way through the graduate school experience, he nominated and designated me as a recipient for a scholarship program that helped ensure that I would have funding for school. The Southern Regional Education Board provided not only financial support, but also the emotional support of being a minority doctoral student. At the time that I was in graduate school, there were two Black females in the entire school that were getting their doctorates. So his wisdom, grace, and foresight to see that SREB was going to be an instrumental way of providing not only financial but emotional support for a path that is not easy to navigate, regardless of what is going on, whether you're a minority student or not, ultimately resulted in people giving me that breath of fresh air every year when we had our annual meeting that allowed me to endure one more year of research, even when things seemed challenging, and I was finally able to walk across that stage. And so I definitely think the outcome of that chance ended up being me walking across the stage with my doctorate degree, even though it took a little longer than what I would have anticipated.
You were one of the two Black females in the entire school. What were the dynamics? How do you feel in that environment?
I'm not really sure if my experience is the norm for every graduate student, but I didn't feel like I had support until I found my final major advisor. And it was very challenging. There were times when I don't think I was given the same level of honesty and respect. So for instance, the first year that I was there, I worked in one professor's lab and I, never had any questions about whether I was doing what I was supposed to do as a graduate assistant. And I assumed that I would come back for that next semester. I found out through another party that he was holding a spot for a student that wasn't even admitted to the graduate school program. So I transferred to a different professor's lab, and then a piece of equipment broke. The school didn't get the equipment fixed for an entire year. So I lost a year of research there. And then I had a graduate school assignment in the stock room, which is fine, but it also meant I wasn't able to work in the lab those hours when everybody else was working in the lab. Which those little slight things that they didn't tell me in advance, or there were things that happened that I thought maybe should have been handled in a different manner. But in all those experiences, I still learned things. And I also learned from that experience when I was in the stock room, nobody wanted to work in the stock room. And the professor that was over the stock room, everybody said, oh, he's such a curmudgeon and he's mean. So here I am now, this is the person that I have to report to. And I learned in that moment that sometimes people who are gruff on the outside, it's really not the way that they appear to you. If you can show them that they can trust you and that they don't have to worry about you not holding up your end of the bargain, so to speak, and that if you're supposed to be opening the stock room for people to get supplies on time, that you're not hiding things, that you're trustworthy and honest and reliable, you can peel that layer back. By the end of that semester, I won't say made a friend, but some of the sharp edges were no longer as sharp as they were. That experience taught me that, as the saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover.
That is really cool. What I'm hearing from that, as the relationship evolved, you put yourself out there, you show them the true you, and then slowly nurture the trust.
Yes.
They will also show you their true self.
Yes. And I remember one time, there's one phone, it's at the other end of the stock room, and the phone was ringing, and I didn't make it to answer it in time. And he came upstairs and he saw that I was actually in the stock room doing what I was assigned to do. And he says, well, why didn't you answer the phone? And I said, hey, I was back here taking care of something else and I missed the call, but what is it that you need? I think for him, maybe he thought he was going to come there and see that nobody was there or I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. But the fact that he came there and saw that, oh, okay, she is really where she was supposed to be and she just missed the phone. It wasn't that she wasn't in the room or she wasn't taking care of her responsibilities. And I think that started to break down his walls that, hey, if she says she's going to do something, she's going to do it. And so maybe not be so harsh and maybe not assume the worst, but give people the benefit of the doubt.
Nice. So we're giving each other some grace as we nurture our relationships, what I'm hearing here.
Yes. And I think even if you start off maybe not in the most trusting place, that if you are true to yourself and you maintain your North Star, that maybe you can change the perception of not only you, but maybe hopefully that the next time the person runs into somebody that's they're unfamiliar with, they'll start off with a maybe not complete trust, but not a place of distrust.
I'm hearing a lot of acceptance in that too.
Yes. I try to say, I'm going to work as hard as I can and be the person that I can, whether you're standing over my shoulder or you're a million miles away.
Love it. Thank you. So this might be a bit abstract. Is it something that we're looking for? Is it something that we should prepare for? What should be our attitude when thinking about serendipity?
I'll say for me, it's not something that I've looked for. It's just been something that has happened. And I think it's like the unexpected blessing. I think back to my current position. I'm about to celebrate my 20th anniversary at my organization. I made it to the big 20. And I distinctly remember the person that hired me. I didn't even remember applying for the job, which he and I joke about to this day. And he was very honest. He said, I've already offered the position to somebody. I don't think they're going to take it. So I'm not going to stop my search for viable candidates. So if you want to come and interview, you can come, but I just wanted to be forthcoming. And so being honest and being truthful, I said, okay, I appreciate that this may be a long shot, but if you're willing to give me a chance, I'll come in. He hired me. And so he is one of my biggest fans, even to this day. And I always respected the fact that he told me up front, hey, this may not work out, but I'm going to give you a shot. And he is one of my biggest champions since then and continues to be so. I didn't even realize that I was going to be at this organization for the entire time. I think back that I almost didn't get this job because it was supposed to be for someone else, but evidently it was really meant for me. And if Dr. Doug Buer hadn't called me that summer of 2004, I might not have ever had this opportunity. And it turned out to be an unexpected blessing because I didn't even realize that you could have a career in the association space. And here I've been 20 years in trade association and hopefully added value not only to the members, but to society at large. And it all started by the chance call that I took from Dr. Doug Buer when he was working at the organization.
20 years for an association. Wow. What kept you so long with this organization?
You know, to be honest, I didn't know that I was going to be here for 20 years. I thought I was going to be here maybe 5 and then go back into research because I still love that aha moment of research. But I love what I do. I might work with the regulatory authorities in the morning, talking to members in the afternoon, and then talking to academics in the evening, meeting with consumers and professors. And so my day is never quite the same, even though in many ways it's very routine. And I have just grown into different roles and responsibilities. I still get to do so many different things. Ultimately, the things that I do will hopefully make the self-care industry and the consumer experience a better one, even if they never know that I had a role in doing that.
I'm hearing a lot of joy in the way that you talk about your work. What is the proudest achievement you've had with these organizations in the last 20 years?
I think the proudest achievement is I mentioned that I work with not only regulators, but also members, other sister or like-minded organizations and stakeholders. And one of the important things for the industry that I work in is that we all have a common goal of making self-care better for consumers. Well, I said, you know, we all are working together, but all from a different angle. How can we show that we can collaborate and make it seem to be something that is broader than what we do, but to show that when you come together, you can make beautiful music. And I happen to know one person from the regulatory authority, one person from our member company were musicians. And I said, we should have a band. Wouldn't it be great if we could get all 3 entities to come together and form a band? The band is now 7 or 8 years old. It has a couple of original members, and it's to the point now that people find out about the band and request to join the band because they hear it has so much fun, and the group has stuck together. They truly have become a band that supports one another. They've now decided to each go off and share their musical talents with others, but they come back together one time a year and meet and play at our annual regulatory scientific and quality conference. I was just last night looking at t-shirts designed for our band for our upcoming regulatory conference.
That is so cool. Who would have thought that you can put together a band in the sector that you're in?
Yes, and they literally practice together in person for about 3 hours the night before their performance. They stay connected, they support one another, they support birth of grandchildren, travel experiences, all of those things that have grown out of that friendship that developed out of a wild idea of how can we show collaboration leading to something, to beautiful music.
I love how you use such a universal analogy like music to bring everyone together. I see that you have a helicopter view of what's going on and identifying that you guys are working together for the better health for consumers. At the same time, you can also operationalize that helicopter view to promote collaborations. And you also manage to build communities from that project as well. That's just so cool.
Yes.
Thank you. Is there anything else or any other stories you'd like to share about serendipity?
I guess the only one that I would be negligent if I didn't bring up is one that you and I share together, and that's being part of the ASAE DELP program. I think the first email I ever opened from ASAE was the one about DELP. And I almost didn't apply. One of my closest friends stayed on me and said, you have to get this done. And I was so fortunate to be able to get in on my first attempt. I'm in the DELP class of 2016, 2018, and they started out as work colleagues, but they have grown quickly into being a second family to me and a support network. And that was truly another example of serendipity. I didn't have the experience of understanding the full impact and the breadth and the scope of DELP when I applied. I knew it would help me, but I didn't really understand the DELP philosophy and the DELP culture. Being selected to that program and then understanding the significance of all that it brings was truly a blessing to me that I had not even been able to have a sense of at the time that I applied. And so I feel fortunate and blessed that I was able to even get in and now hopefully give back to others as new classes come in.
The more I'm listening to your stories here, the more I visualize we are just given a piece of a puzzle that we don't know where it will be, but just hold on to it. One day, the rest of the puzzle will slowly coming together and we will know where to place that piece. So just really be willing to accept things coming our way. And like you said earlier, God's working in the background. And when times comes, it will come very quickly.
Yes, absolutely.
So what's next for you in the coming 12 months?
Don't really know. I am actually in West Virginia now. With the pandemic, I was able to move back home to help take care of my aging parents. And my mom has Parkinson's, work remotely most of the time. So for me, I'm focused on making sure that my parents have the support that they need and that I can be here to make sure that they enjoy the latter years of their life. I also have a niece that is almost 7 years old now. She brings so much joy to not just my family, but those that are around her. So I want to make sure that she has as much time with my parents, her grandparents, as she possibly can. So those are really what I'm focusing on now. And ultimately, I think what will happen with my career will come into play, but my parents are my primary focus right now.
Thank you for sharing your focus on the coming 12 months. I'm hearing a lot of caregivers being there for everyone else. How about being there for Marcia?
Oh, I am definitely here for me. So part of the pandemic, I started exercising because we weren't going into the office every day. I started taking me time. And even when we were all supposed to be sheltering in place, I was out on the trails in my neighborhood literally every day, unless it was just too icy or too rainy. My self-care for me is finding time to go outside to jog or take a nice long walk, to enjoy the sunshine, the fresh air, to listen to a podcast or news or music. And so that's my me time. I make time intentionally every day to do some sort of exercise, preferably outside, getting not only the sunshine, but the fresh air in my lungs.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that our Marcia is well looked after as well as everyone else around. The last question. So imagine tomorrow you have 24 hours that you do not have to do anything for anyone, no agenda. How would you spend that 24 hours?
Oh, that's a good question. I would probably choose to bring my family together and let us spend a whole day just enjoying one another's company. I have one sister, one brother who is my niece's father, and then I have a whole host of what I'll call my chosen siblings and nieces and nephews. So biological family, only my parents and the 3 siblings and my niece. Chosen family, very large.
Love that. It sounds like a lovely time. This is the end of the episode. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
My name is Marcia Howard, and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity.